That's Nick.
And that's Joseph. And today we're here to talk about The Reading, the directorial debut of Courtney Glaude, which premiered February 2nd, 2023 on BET+. Notably, it is produced by Lee Daniels.
I was excited to watch this.
I was excited several weeks ago. I received an email notification about this new film. I asked for a screener. I was declined that opportunity.
So we had to sign up for BET Plus again.
The reunion or pacification of the tension between Monique and Lee Daniels, I assumed that I perhaps had too high of expectations for this film.
So what are the positives of this movie? It is not what I expected. I thought it was going to be sort of like a paranormal...
I kind of wanted it to be like Spell with Loretta Devine and Omari Hardwick.
I think it's fun to see Monique. Her character goes through a transition that we can get into this performance is unhinged. Mm-hmm. So that's interesting. And I think the basic, the bones of this story, I could see a version of this being very interesting. But as it is, this is pretty bad.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
The acting from several of the characters.
Everybody that's not Monique.
The screenplay, the dialogue is... I think the direction is very questionable.
The screenplay is straight up atrocious. This needed to be scrub. If this is like the second or third draft of this script, we needed like 10 to 15 more to get to a point where it's actual humans talking.
Yeah, the dialogue is very wooden and just odd. But the basic story is Monique plays a character named Emma Leeden. Mm-hmm. She is married with 2 children. And we see one night there is a home invasion, and her family, including her, are brutally attacked. It's very violent. Mm-hmm. And her husband and 2 children are killed. We fast forward a year, and we see that she has now recovered from her injuries, although she does walk with a cane. She appears to have some sort of speech impairment, and she has written a book, so she's on this book tour.
Called The Invasion.
And her publicist also happens to be her sister-in-law, mm-hmm. who we need to talk about. Mm-hmm. But her sister-in-law has arranged a psychic reading, sort of as like a publicity stunt for the book. So this psychic reading is going to take place using this woman named Sky and her team. Mm-hmm. And we also need to talk about this team because we're introduced to them as sort of like con artists.
They're swindling this young white collegiate out of money by...
saying that his mom from the dead is telling him to transfer a bunch of money to some fund.
To this charity.
But anyway, them doing the reading for Monique's character is legit. Like they're told, we're going to pay you $20,000 and this is basically for publicity. But then the leader of the group, who's not the psychic, this guy named James, I believe. Is that his name?
The leader of the group, Gregory.
Sorry. He is like, well, if they're willing to pay us $20,000, we can probably get $100,000 out of them. So they show up and do the reading, and there's a big twist. The gag is the psychic, Sky, because she does have real psychic ability, she sees that armed robbers did not kill Monique's family. Monique killed her family. So this lady's crazy. She killed them because she had grown accustomed to a lavish lifestyle, and they were having financial difficulties. So she figured if she killed everyone, she could stay rich. And so now that this psychic knows her truth, she needs to kill everyone. Mm-hmm. And she does. And in the very end, it's just the psychic, Sky, and Monique. And they have a final battle where Sky kills Monique. The end. Man.
Woo!
The basic story of a woman whose family was killed and then she gets a psychic reading and the psychic discovers that I think this lady killed her family could be a really interesting thriller. But then we needed maybe the psychic goes to law enforcement and they're like, bitch, you're crazy. Mm-hmm. And so she has to do her own investigating. That could have been an interesting
There
movie.
is a really interesting idea that is imperiled by a lot of other terrible factors. The beginning it's crunchy from the get because Monique walks in and...
You've never seen someone so happy to be home. It's like, what?
Well, also, where have you been and for how long? Because
But then looking back, it's like, well, she knew that night when she came home, she was going to kill everyone. Mm-hmm. So thinking about it now that you just said it, it is kind of creepy to know that this woman came home being so vibrant with the plan to assassinate all her family.
Yes, and it's very brutal. It's kind of like in cold blood.
It's shockingly brutal. Yeah.
Yes, well, because you don't see the 2-year-old or whatever getting drowned in the tub, but like
I think he's 5.
Or whatever.
Because they say he's older, or they state his age, but we both thought he was much younger than
yeah,
that.
yeah. And then she's like listening to this song in the kitchen that must be, which I really like. It's called a Shell of a Woman, which we think initially is what she becomes after this, literally like a shell of a woman, but it must be in the public domain, which is how they got that. But yeah, and then it fast forwards, and right away when she's giving that interview with the speech impediment, you're like, oh God, is she going to talk like this through the whole movie?
Wow, I felt bad thinking that, but it was like, because even, so then the speech impediment, she's speaking very slowly, and it's
very
like,
halting, yeah.
And then when the psychics come to her house, Monique wants to give the psychic a tour.
And we're like, oh boy.
And it's like, that takes forever because she walks super slowly.
They only get to one room.
Yeah, they only get to one room. Okay, the psychic Sky, she kind of reminded me of Zac Efron's character in Firestarter. Mm-hmm. How he's doing like mentalist type work for like pennies.
Yeah.
But I think, gosh, I mean, the direction's bad, the dialogue's bad. This movie can't have cost more than like 10 G's to make.
Well, Monique is supposed to be part of this wealthy family, but it looks like the production designer is giving us a show home in Leimert Park. And
it looks like, like someone's like open house home. It's in a very nice neighborhood. It's a beautiful home.
But the interior, this doesn't look like a wealthy person's house. And there's shit written on the walls. Rich people don't have that on their walls.
Getting back to the dialogue, it's very repetitive. We get told so many. So the casting is interesting because we have Monique, but we also have Charnele Brown, who we know from A Different World,
playing a character named Oda Brown.
And her character feels a lot like Monique's character in Precious, minus she's not abusive to her daughter, because Charnele's character is Sky's mom. But the way she's styled and smoking and talking is just like Monique and Precious.
But we get her degrees on the wall.
And then she's so repetitive. She keeps telling her daughter, I got these bills. Don't worry about these bills. I got these bills. Bills. And then we find out, and then you're looking at her like, well, are you going to get up and work? You look like all you do is sit on the couch. And then we realize that the way she's making money is she's like prostituting. Because there's a scene where we see Sky in her bedroom, and Sky can hear her mom in the next room having sex. And then that's when she tells her friend, okay, I'll do this next reading.
Let's swindle this lady. But I just don't know what the point of making Sky and her team con artists is.
That is such a bad decision. Yeah, because why?
They're also putting it out there in the public realm, and it's like your track record could get messed up real quick if someone of note publicizes that you tricked them, or out of money, out of $100K. It just doesn't make any sense, and I think that she should have just been this lightly psychic woman that discovers this huge secret, and that's interesting enough.
Yeah.
The rest of it. And not Chasity Sereal plays Sky, and there's nothing innately wrong with her performance, but she has to get through all this terrible. The psychic reading is really bad, and there's Monique gets up at one point like, I'm too upset, which I've never seen happen in a psychic reading, and it's still continuing. And but she is channeling her dead children, and she's like, oh, Kendall, the teenage daughter. She said she was more like her dad, but really girly. What?
So like her mom? The dialogue's terrible.
And like I said, it starts off in Cold Blood, and then Monique basically becomes Diane Downs.
Oh, yeah, actually. I do have to give a shout out. Sky has a Poetic Justice sticker on her laptop.
Sure.
And then it's like the dialogue's not great, and then the audio is off. Like the ADR is obvious.
They have a white crew member, Randy, played by Macaulay Teeters, and you're like, who is this white person trying to rob black?
I was like, why is this white boy robbing black folks? I was very bothered that like because the team is 4 people. It's Sky, her homegirl, and then Greg, who's Sky's boyfriend. They're all black.
And the homegirl is Jessie's like a nurse.
And apparently she's a nurse. And then there's this white boy, and I just thought like no one's gonna say like
the cinematographer.
Like, y'all just gonna rob this black lady? What's happening?
But once she locks them all in, then it's like also a decent idea, which gives me People Under the Stairs vibes, right? My favorite Wes Craven, where sometimes the only way out is in.
The character of the sister-in-law slash
Oh boy.
publicist, I think, is really poorly done because she's knowing that Monique is faking all of it, like that she's faking her speech impairment and her physical disability, and with the attitude she has, I can't believe that she would tolerate the sister-in-law who's like, that dialogue and acting wasn't the best, and she's kind of like
Lisa Alavi.
yeah, she's kind of a dick. And
Well, it's like she doesn't realize that Emma is faking all of this and, murdered her family. And ostensibly what I'm guessing is her brother. Her name's Ashley Leeden, but I really don't know that it's established if that's the sister-in-law.
yeah, I don't know why I needed to be someone with the same last name. But then, the way it plays out, because the publicist does tell Emma, like, oh, I did tell the psychic a few things about you so it would feel more real, which made me think, oh, because she's related to you, she knows stuff.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, why make it kind of ambiguous and weird?
And then the director himself shows up as a homeless man in a scene that's wholly unnecessary.
And like 2-3 seconds long.
Yeah, I
That
don't
was
know.
weird.
We don't need that.
Then again, this repetitive nature of the story, we get told so many times that there's no internet or Wi-Fi service in this house. Even though this house is in a because we see the exterior, it's in a very nice, it looks like it could be in Hancock Park.
There is no
way
reason
that you would not have internet or cell service. And then they keep repeating it. And there's even a point at the end, there's a plot point where Monique is sitting on the stairs, like in the final showdown. And she's like, I'm sitting here because this is the only spot in the house that gets service. Like, internet and data? Like, what's happening?
At the beginning of the film, she says, like, oh, this house kills the Wi-Fi. No, that does not make
That's not
sense.
a thing. That's not a thing. Then speaking about the bad site, because it's like a seance.
Mm-hmm.
At one point...
Daytime putting these drippy candles on her nice counter.
At one point, Sky is talking about how, like, Emma, Monique's character, would season her crawfish so good that, like, your hands would burn. And then her white sister-in-law, I guess, is like, well, that's every black person in America. What? I don't understand why that character is written that way.
I don't either. Yeah, she's not. She doesn't really have Emma's interests in mind.
Then again, going back to the seance, Sky is pretending to be like talking to the older daughter, and she's like, "Well, she would imitate you, Emma, perming your hair because you forbid her to perm her own." Like, what a weird thing to say. And also, Monique's hair doesn't look permed in the movie, and also it's not a perm, it's a relaxer, and I hate people call them perms. But
that made no goddamn sense. And then when Kendall gets murdered, she's like chuckling as she's having this text conversation, and then when Sky is channeling Kendall, she's reading that conversation, including the emojis. Sad face emoji.
That was crazy.
Oh
okay,
God.
So the plot point that really sends it to like ridiculous town is Monique's character Emma tells the audience and the crew towards the end, I knew I had to kill you because you knew what I did. But I'm thinking, so what? So you thought that this psychic girl who's like a crook is going to go to the police and tell them that she had a vision that you killed your family a year ago and that was going to get you arrested. So you think those odds are worse than committing a mass murder?
Where you could spin it, since these people are con artists, that they were trying to shake me down. I refuse to be blackmailed.
Right.
And they're accusing me of doing this. Like, you'd be fine.
That's such
You'd be
weak
fine.
writing. Like, it doesn't make any sense that this lady, I mean, unless we're trying to play her as like she's insane, but she doesn't come across as insane. She comes across as like narcissistic and egomaniacal and selfish, but
I want to see the parody version with Lala Millian as Sky, because that's who she But Monique is a lot of fun to watch.
she is, because so the first half of the movie, it's kind of cringy because she's acting like slow and impaired in a way that just is like, it's just really slowing down the pace of the film. Excuse me. But then when she goes back to her normal self, it's fun. And when she kills the white boy, she tells him, you don't deserve to die like this, with a gunshot. So she bludgeons him with a hammer. That was very violent.
That's because this You see that in a lot of movies, though, where it's like, you're not worth my bullet. Even like in RRR.
Speaking of a bullet, she shoots Greg in the chest. Like,
And-
and the entire rest of the movie is running around like he got a paper cut.
No exit wound for that shot, at least.
Oh my god, no, I'm possessed by the coughing spirit. So Monique is fully unhinged. I can't even repeat the words she's saying because we'll be demonetized, but she's going on about how, like, F them kids, I don't care about them kids. Like, when she's talking about how she killed her family, it's like, whoa. And then at one point, she's running around the house kind of flailing this knife and this gun. At one point, she's singing that Freddy Krueger song, like, 1, 2, Emma's coming for you. It's a lot of fun.
Watching her run up the stairs, too. Because they do some fast forward motions.
There is a scene where we see Monique run through the hallway. That was creepy. Yeah, that did look good.
Again, this is her first on-screen appearance since 2016's Almost Christmas. So, again, I saw that she was in this movie reuniting with Lee Daniels in some capacity. So I'm like, oh, this is going to be good.
My last note is this movie, it's better quality, but it's on the level of Tiffany the Doll.
It's better than that.
It's better, but I think I enjoyed both about the same because they're so ridiculous. Like, and if you don't know, Tiffany the Doll is on Tubi, so it's free. So I would recommend that movie because it's just so ridiculous. And this movie, it's a shame because Monique's acting ability is very strong, and it's fun seeing her on screen.
She's an Oscar winner,
She deserves better than this script and direction.
I think since, all of that fallout based on the campaigning for Precious or non-campaigning for Precious and all the bridges she kind of burned and the Netflix drama, it's nice to see her finding work again, and maybe she'll have a resuscitation. But they already tried that with Patrick Ian Polk's Blackbird, which I didn't really like. Again, I liked the ideas behind it, but I didn't really like that film. Or, she is good in Bessie with Queen Latifah, directed by Dee Reese. But yeah, those are I think the only 3 things we've seen over the past decade from her.
What would you give this film?
Because she's fun to watch, it will get 1 star from me. Otherwise, I'd give it the lowest I possibly could. But
if she weren't in it, I'd probably give it 0.5. But I think the other thing too is she's only fun for the second half of the film. So if you get all that footage together, it's probably 7 minutes worth. Mm-hmm. So maybe someone can cut a compilation and put that on YouTube. But I guess I would give it 1.5, and that's for her performance and kind of an interesting basic story.
It is. There's interesting things there, but
anything else?
No.
Hit the thanks button. Listen to our podcast. Bye.